Welcome to my channel, Alex's Photo Session, where we'll be discussing the ISO settings, aperture settings, and also the shutter speed. So, as I mentioned before, there is different things which are influencing the exposure of your picture. One of those things is, as I mentioned, the ISO setting, which is the sensitivity of your sensor within the camera, right? This one, as I mentioned, it's a mirrorless camera, and it actually has the advantage to have a interchangeable lenses. I can take off this lens and put on any other lens, which means I'm much more flexible than with a system camera where it's built together, and you have a lot of things you can do with it, but it's not that versatile, not that flexible in the end. So with this one, I can just simply take it off. Like, here's a little button on the camera. I don't know how much you can see that actually. It's a little dark, but anyways, there's a little button, or the release button. I press it, I turn, and then it's off. And then I don't know if you have ever been wondering, but I was wondering back at that time how a camera looks from the inside. And this is it, right? I mean, look at that. I take it a little bit closer, and I might need to press the focus again. So it's, I don't know, look at that, it's moving there. So there, what you see inside, see that stuff? That's the camera sensor, and that's actually a big one. This one is called a full frame because it has the same size as the old analog standard films had, 35 millimeters to be precise, in diameter, and this means it takes pretty good quality. The bigger the sensor, the more quality you have, the more details you get in the pictures, and the more dynamic range you have. Well, this is also something we're going to cover in some later videos, dynamic range. But anyways, with this you can take, I think it's 24 megapixels pictures, which is a pretty good quality. I mean, you can use it for anything. You can even use it for printing out stuff. But even if you have a 12 megapixels camera, it's enough, right? The small one, the Canon, didn't have so much. It had 20 megapixels, and this is already amazing quality in the end. So the point is that this sensor here is taking in all the light, right, through the lens. So here's my lens. It actually has this is an autofocus, which means that you know, I don't need to manually select where it's focusing, but I can just simply press the shutter button and it's just, you know, focusing at the hopefully right point. Anyways, the thing is that this sensor has a sensitivity. So electricity is steering how sensitive this thing is when you turn it on, and that setting is called ISO. Now ISO, there are different settings, but the general rule, I mean, is it a rule? No, it's not really a rule, but the general knowledge behind this is that the lower ISO settings you have, the better the image quality will be. If you push up your ISO to the upper end of your camera's capabilities, there will be a lot of grain. It will be, we call it noise. Grain, there will be white little dots. If you zoom into the image, you will see that it's not clear. It's actually a bit swishy, swashy, spongy. I don't know how to say it, but in the end, it's not really 100% sharp, and it will not look nice. It's not crisp. Sometimes you want to have exactly this effect because it looks cool on some images, especially if you want to do some vintage images or something like this. But usually you don't want to have that. So the lower the ISO, the lower the sensitivity, the clearer the image will be. The second setting you can actually steer on your, usually on your lens or also on your camera if you have a system camera, is the so-called aperture. The aperture means there is inside the lens, here I have another lens, this is what is it, the Samyang wide angle lens. We're going to talk about that as well, what it means, wide angle. And this lens, if you look through it, it lets the light in, right, from the front, light goes in, and on the other side, usually would be the camera, right, with the sensor which is taking the image. Now the thing is that within this, it's actually a highly complex thing what you have here, but within this thing, you have a little, like the iris in your eye, you know, which is either smaller or bigger, and depending on, it's letting through the light. So if you look at this, I'm trying to make it here and see if it's working or not, taking it close, maybe trying to focus on it a little bit, well, more or less. And when this is actually a manual focus lens, but doesn't matter right now. So when I start turning the ring, which is measuring the aperture size, you will see that it's getting smaller. You see that? There it goes. Smaller, 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 and that's the smallest setting. This means that with every click, the amount of light which is let through the lens is actually half of the amount if you close it down, or it's double if you open it up. With every single click, like you see, click, 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 and so on. There are numbers on this thing which are actually indicating this. Wait a second, I need to focus again. There you go. You see, there it is. 22, 16, whatever, 11, and so on. There it goes. And the smaller the number is, the more light is getting through the lens. You see, this is 2.8. This is the smallest setting I can actually give it. That's actually a pretty good lens, because 2.8 is a lot of light which can go in, so it makes it actually perfectly usable for galaxy photography and night photography and stuff like that. Maybe we're going to talk about this later on as well in a future video. And smaller aperture means that you will have less light which is coming into the lens, which is maybe interesting if you are in the very bright conditions. You know, the sun is shining outside, or maybe you are in a snowy field or something and you have a lot of light, and you want to make sure that a little bit less goes in. Then you could, you know, close down the aperture, but this would actually have different other effects as well. We're going to talk about this as well. It's important for the so-called bokeh effect. Now, if I would start closing down the aperture of this, so making the little thing smaller, this means that the so-called depth of field is widened. So the things behind me would also get sharper. The smaller the aperture, the sharper the things in the background will be, which are not the main focus. This is especially cool if you have pictures with light, you know, like lamps and it's dark, like city lights or something like this, and you have your subject, I don't know, a person or something in the foreground. You take the picture with a very wide aperture, so with a big one, which means a small number like 2.8, or there are even lenses which allow an even bigger aperture like 1.4. And there are super professional lenses which allow a 1.0 aperture, which is huge. It means you get a lot of light. And then the third thing which is influencing your exposure would be the shutter speed. I will actually put in a little a GIF file to show you how it looks like. Or is it a GIF? That doesn't matter in here. This is a little video which will show you how it works. But in the end, the shutter means that the sensor is not continuously exposed to light. Usually there is a blend in front of it. And when you press the shutter button, I mean when you take the picture, it moves away that thing and moves it back. So for a defined amount of time, you will expose your sensor to the light, to the picture which it is taking. And this is usually calculated in seconds or part times of a second. You know, like there are shutter speeds which say it's 1/2000th of a second. So, you know, 2,000 times shorter time than 1 second, which is a pretty fast speed. And you would usually use these for sport photography, even faster shutter speeds than that, like 1/8000th or something like this. And this allows to freeze the moment in time and have a sharp image even of moving subjects. Doesn't matter what it is. Usually, you know, when you have a football match or something like this, you want to have, look in the newspaper, right? You often have pictures of football games where the player is super sharp even though he was running like hell. So that was achieved with a fast shutter speed in the end. And then you have also low shutter speeds, which even go up into the seconds area or even minutes. But that is particularly useful if you are taking night photos and you want to have an effect on moving things, which is, you know, like washed away, like super soft washed away look. And you can, especially it looks super good on water. So if you have like, I don't know, rivers or waterfalls, you want to take long exposure shots because it looks pretty cool if everything is washed away. I will put in a video, I will put in a picture right here, which I've taken of a couple of waterfalls. So you can see that it's washed away. And it has a special veil effect. Looks pretty good. It also looks good on clouds. You know, if you take a long exposure of clouds, you will also have this washed away feeling on these, which can be pretty nice. Depends on your personal taste and so on. But yeah, anyway, you will to be able to steer these settings, you will actually need a camera, which allows you to do so. Most cameras actually have this. Even your phones usually have that stuff. I mean, this one is a Huawei and it has a manual or a pro setting in the camera app actually, which allows me to manually steer these things. Although usually phones, they do not have an aperture. I mean, it's fixed. They have it, but it's fixed. You cannot change, you know, the size of how much light is going through that hole in the lens of your phone. Anyways, next time I think we're gonna talk about these in a little bit more detail. If you have any questions or if you have any suggestions, please feel free to drop me a comment. I'm happy to, I'm happy for anything. Give me your feedback, let me know what you think. Love and kisses to my wife. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. I would appreciate it very much. Please subscribe, stay tuned for next time, and kudos.